Okay, welcome to Year 8 Science Online with Henny van Vieren.
Okay, hi guys. Welcome back to today's lesson, and today we're going to be talking about which organs you use to break down your food. It's not only your teeth. Okay, so yeah, let's get to it. I just want to quickly, ding, there we go. Okay, so which organs do we use to break down our food? So the specific learning outcomes, you can label the major organs of the human digestive system. Um, you can describe the function of each: the mouth, your saliva, that's your spit, the salivary glands where the spit are made, your esophagus, your stomach, your small intestine, large intestine, rectum, and your anus. And you can explain the role that each organ plays in digestion. I can discuss the full digestive process. So, I can explain various structural adaptations to assist with digestion. And I can explain, for instance, hydrochloric acid in the stomach, mucus in our mouths, the villi, which is a strange name. It's not a villain. The villi are inside our small intestines, and the role of the large intestine in absorbing water, liver as storing energy and producing bile, um, and so forth. Okay. Oh, there's more. Outline the structure, function of teeth, but that's going to be in a different one. Now, you did this experiment already with Mr. Potter, where you tried to draw where your heart, lungs, stomach, salivary glands, etc. sit. Okay, so the function of the digestive system is that it changes the food you eat into the nutrients that your cells can use. So just like I said in class, when you eat a Big Mac, there's not pieces of Big Mac floating around in your blood. That'll be very dangerous. Um, what actually goes in there, or it breaks it down to the carbohydrates, or actually down all the way to the glucose level, the simple carbohydrates, and then into lipids, and also into the proteins and all the other things that you can find in the food. So that's the nutrients. So here's your whole digestive system. You can see your esophagus, it comes down into the stomach. Your stomach, it spends a bit of time and it's being sloshed around in a lot of and squashed all the time, but also it's in hydrochloric acid. Okay, that's a very strong acid, and um, you will do some more experiments with hydrochloric acid this year as well. From there, it goes into the small intestine, and in the small intestine, you have the gallbladder, which produces bile because something has to neutralize the acid, and that then helps to that your body, your own acid doesn't dissolve your own small intestine, so we really need that. And that's also from the pancreas, which is called the pancreatic duct, but you don't have to know that. So in your small intestine is where most of the nutrients are taken up and taken into your blood, and from your blood it then goes to the cells to give the cells what they need. After the small intestine, which is a very long, very, very long, look, there it goes. This is not a brain, that's your small intestine. Yeah, so the small intestine is this long, long, long thing, and then eventually it goes all the way and it comes into the large intestine right over here. And that over there is your appendix. Um, the rat has a much bigger appendix because it needs to break down all the cellulose and stuff that is a lot of roughage that the rats eat because of their diet. But yeah, so then over here is the large intestine. It comes up, 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 and then all the way across the top of your tummy, basically, just under your stomach and your liver. And the main purpose for the large intestine is to get all the water out of the food. Okay, if you have it, if you have an infection of your large intestines, you usually have diarrhea, and that's really watery poo. Okay, so here we go. It is the large intestine goes down behind the small intestine over there. Then we get to the rectum, and the rectum is basically the storage area for your poo, and then the anus, which is the valve that opens and closes to let the poo out. But if you think about how clever this valve is, it knows when it's just a gas, like a fart, and it knows when it's a solid, like poop. So the anus is actually an amazing organ. So digestion is when we take the food and we chemically break it down so that it can be absorbed in the bloodstream. Your teeth, they grind your food. Okay, so when we start with the digestive system, the first thing is your teeth. It grinds the food down um, so that it becomes easier to swallow. It also helps to mix it with your saliva. The saliva is like the lubrication. That's why sometimes you have a little drink with your food. Also, it helps it to moisturize your food. And then the tongue helps to mix the whole thing around. And then when you swallow, the tongue helps to push it all the way down into your esophagus. So when you were young, you called it your gullet, but we are in science now, so we now call it our esophagus. From and it travels down the esophagus into the stomach. So the esophagus is the tube that carries the food from the mouth to the stomach. The epiglottis, it's this flap thing over there, and that actually prevents food from going down the wrong hole. Okay, so what happens when it goes into your trachea? Remember, the trachea is the stuff that goes down to your lungs. That's when we cough and cough and cough, and then we call that choking. And then the uvula covers the nasal passage. That's your. If you look at the back of your mouth, there's a little thingy that hangs there. In my language, it's called the little tongue. Okay, but it's in English we call it the uvula. So the stomach, it stores all the food. It's like the warehouse. The muscles, the sphincter muscles open and close it. The chyme is the liquid lumpiness of the stuff, and the hydrochloric acid and the enzymes help to break it down. Okay, and then the stomach is lined by special mucus, which is a special slime that your body releases, and that helps to protect the stomach, so that the stomach itself is not digested by the hydrochloric acid and the enzymes. Okay, then we go into the small intestines. You don't have to know the names like they just said in that video. You can just call it the small intestine. Further enzymatic digestion and absorption, and specifically through the villi. Now the villi are like tiny little fingers, almost like hairs actually, that then basically absorb everything. And because they have these little projections, there's a lot of mucous membrane, or almost like the inside skin of your intestine, that is exposed to the food as it goes by. And because of that, there's a lot of absorption that takes place there. And then the colon. In the colon, you have digestion of fiber by the friendly bacteria that live in your tummy. They'll all live in your colon because we cannot digest fiber. That's called cellulose. The bacteria that we have, they do that. Okay, and the water is being reabsorbed, and then in your rectum, it stores the feces or the stool before it's ready for excretion. And lastly, the anus is where we expel the feces. Okay, so how does it move? It's called peristalsis. This is amazing. It's like when you have to push something through a tube. I don't know if you've ever done this, but you can like close your hands behind the thing all the time. And I don't know if you can see on the camera, but it's like this when you're pushing something through a balloon or something like that. And I'll show you a picture of that now. But it contracts above the food, or above the bolus in this case. And as it contracts, it pushes it down a bit, then it contracts again, pushes it down a bit, contracts again, pushes it down. And then absorption specifically is where we take the food into our bloodstream. And yeah, here's another video just to show how food moves through the digestive system. So you can see this person has ingested it. This is peristalsis, so it's basically contracting behind the food all the time, and as it's going through, it is pushing it along and along, and your whole intestine is doing this all the time, pushing it, pushing it, pushing it, pushing it. You can see it's in the small intestines and in the large intestines. Okay, and all the way in your esophagus as well. So can you see how it's narrowing behind the food, narrowing behind the chyme, we should say in this case. Okay, so next one. So here you can see peristalsis happening in a real esophagus, I imagine. So you can see how it's closing and pushing behind. And these are not intestines, believe it or not. They are something called gooey fish, but they use exactly the same process to force things down their body. So look at this bottom one, is really cool. It's pushing it down. Okay, I hope for those of you who are squeamish this is not too bad. Anyway, so the other parts you have to remember is the liver. It makes bile. The bile itself is a substance that can break down fats. The gallbladder, it receives the bile from the liver and stores it, and that's that green thing under your liver. And then we also have the pancreas. It makes the enzymes that break down starches, and they also contain bicarbonate that actually is like baking soda, and that helps to stop your hydrochloric acid from dissolving your small intestines. Lipase is an enzyme that breaks down lipids. Remember, lipids, lipase. Protease breaks down proteins. And then amylase breaks down amylose, but amylose is the thing that starch is made of. So amylase breaks down starch. And it secretes into the upper small intestine, just where your stomach begins. Okay. So, the difference between digestion and absorption. Digestion is breaking it down, and absorption is putting it into your bloodstream. So, digestion happens in the mouth, in the stomach, and the small intestine, whereas absorption happens in the small intestine and the large intestine. So, the small intestines, we said they're lined with millions of villi and microvilli. And they also produce enzymes that help to break down your food for you. Here you can see the villi and the microvilli. So if you look closely and we make that bigger, they have like these little finger thingies, projections, we call them villi, and because of that there's so many of them and lots of space for the food to be in contact with this. You see all the space where the food can be in contact, and because of that they can then take the nutrients into the blood itself. We said that in the large intestine your water is absorbed and the bacteria break down the fiber and so on. And just for interest sake, I want you guys to go and read up on poo transplant. So fecal transplants are being made somewhat more palatable. This actually saves lives. There's a disease called ulcerative colitis, where a single bacteria takes over your large intestine, usually in old people, and then to do that they need to do a poo transplant. So if you want more information you can ask me and I will give it to you, but I think go and research it at first. Okay guys, so that's the video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I will put a few questions on Education Perfect, and then tomorrow we will do some exercises regarding this. Okay, have a great day, stay safe. Remember, if you stay safe and uninfected, you save lives. Bye.